Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Erasmus Expeditions. We are here with session number 20 of our Momentum campaign titled Whispers and Fragments. Tonight's session is titled Damned If You Do. This is a D&D 5e campaign that takes place in a homebrew setting. We are nearing the end of this campaign as we approach 2 years. And I'm very excited to continue this story. It's always heart-wrenching and a lot of fun, kind of in equal measure, to watch what happens to these characters. So, if bad language and mature subject matter is something that bothers you, then you need to go watch another game. This is your final warning. This is not for children or immature. I'm immature, so maybe I shouldn't be watching this. I don't know. I always get confused about that term. Anyways, I'm going to pass things over to my players so that they can introduce themselves, plug anything that they would like to plug, and then we will get this thing rolling. So first off, with the beautiful camera, other direction, Jake.
Oh, hi. Hey, internets. It's Jake. Yeah, I'm Jake, also known as Mini Terrain Domain. You can find me wherever you can find Mini Terrain Domain, most notably on Thursday nights, where you can find Jeremy sitting in one of the lower spots of an overlay as we play our long-running Dawnbringers campaign. And since he's not here to plug it, Alan also runs a Curse of Strahd every Friday night on Mini Terrain Domain Twitch channel. At 10 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, we do a lot of D&D games. But I'm happy to be sitting here in this spot tonight, once again taking up the role of Katvrad, the sort of teenaged, angsty dwarf with a warlock skill set.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, tomorrow night is our finale.
Yes, our season 4 finale for Dawnbringers.
Very excited for that. Finally gonna stake a bitch. I can't wait. I have been wanting to kill this vampire for a very long time. Maybe not stake.
That is also a game that we've
term.
been playing for 2 years.
Yeah, no kidding. Man, time is just nuts. Well, this year, I don't know. It counts because that's the good part that's happened this year, but the rest of this year shouldn't count. We should get a mulligan. Next up, we have Austin.
Hello. Oh, whoops. Don't know how good my sound's going to be tonight. I'm having a little bit of an audio issue. If you guys can hear me, that's great. I have nothing to plug. Just happy to be playing with everybody. That's right, the camera's over there now. Y'all have a good one, though. So excited to play again. Like, this is going to be, God, it's getting close to the end, and that's terrifying, but also exciting. So I'm excited to push ever closer. I'll be playing Basterad, the angry bonekin. Although I'm not quite as angry these days, necessarily. A little more sad.
Personally, I find there's a very fine line between angry and sad. Yeah, man, I'm glad to have you back. Bastrad's story, everybody's story has been really tragic, I guess is probably a good word for it. So it's been awesome to watch these characters kind of bloom and change and develop over time. I can't wait for more. All right, next up we have Tim.
Hey, I am Tim. I am 1/3 of Tabletop Terrors, but I'm also a founder of tabletop RPG publisher Absolute Tabletop. And I'm really excited because this coming Monday is something that I've dreamed about since I was a kid, which is there are going to be little toys of something that I invented. And so we are teaming up with a really popular and very well-reputationed miniature manufacturer, Westphalia, and they're creating our sort of evil Dark Lord army from our homebrew campaign setting of Dragongrin. which begs the question, at what point is it not homebrew? I guess once you publish the book, it's legit. So our campaign setting of Dragon Grin, but check that out. And if you don't play in Dragon Grin, that's fine. These are some rad designs that you can use to create any sort of dark army. And so we're very, very, very excited for that this coming Monday.
I'm ready.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jake, I cannot wait.
My
Oh,
body is
man.
so ready.
I can't wait. It's just surreal. And the sculptor that did it is insanely talented, and they look so great. And I'm just so happy. So,
Yeah, they are premium looking. The one with the dog, man, that's the one that I can't wait to get my paws on. It's so amazing. Yeah, I've been contemplating ways that I might be able to add little crests to their helmets, so that way I can use them in my Roman game that I'm planning. So I might have to do that. But yeah, man, excited as always to have you back as Sabanos. Anybody who mentions the channel and things like that, you should be able to find it in the description of this video. Do go check them out, please. Last, but certainly not least, Jeff.
Yes, hello everybody. I'm Jeff. I am also 1/3 of Tabletop Terrors. So go ahead and check out those videos if you want to see 2 of the 3/3 that will be going into that. And yeah, I am playing Darian, a ex-rogue, now trying to reform himself and find a new life. His old past has certainly been catching up with him, especially lately though. So see how much of an arc he gets to have by the end of it. Yeah, always looking forward to this game. Tonight is no different. Can't wait to get into it.
Good to have you back. Good as always to have you back, Jeff. Every time you come on the channel, man, I love it. Okie dokie. Unless there are any questions, I think we are ready to begin. We are ready to begin the lessons. Okay. Let's see. Oftentimes, when presented with making an important decision, our experiences and expectations clearly dictate the choice that we feel to be the most correct. The decision, we could say, is made for us. However, there are other times when that path forward is less clear, when that decision is much more difficult to make. If we are lucky, it is because more than one choice seems optimal. Whichever course we pursue leads us towards a beneficial end. But there are times, those unlucky times, when a decision must be made, and there are no good choices. Kaarast has been stripped of his title and position as High Priest. And he has now been exiled from the hand of Tarlock Valley. Before your own departure of the village of Aqun, what would you like to do or say, if anything?
Bastard said his goodbyes. He's told everyone that he needed to tell, everything he needed to tell them, and he's accepted what he's heading into. So he's just ready to push back to the ship.
Okay. You all rise early the next morning. Vostrad, I would imagine that through the course, at least the first part of the day or so, your mind replays what happened at night, the night before you left. The dream you had, well, it may be more apt to call it a nightmare. And the visitation of the shadow that was there whenever you awoke.
Yeah, Bastard's been unable to get that swinging chain out of his mind, and that movement of shadow that seems so unnatural. And after, in the mid morning, he said nothing of it, but after time during their trek, he'll just casually say to anyone who might be within earshot, did any of you have any sort of dreams last night? Or see anything strange?
Yeah, Darian will kind of like look at the others, kind of like with the tiniest bit of, I guess, concern on his face before he'll just kind of like shake his head and shrug. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Every time I close my eyes, I see weird things in my dreams. I think that's normal.
I had a dream. It was familiar, but I think there might have been something in my room when I woke up. I saw a shadow move. I don't know what to make of it yet. I'm not going to worry about it for the time. It had me asleep. It could have done what it wanted, but we should be wary.
Was the room dark?
It was, but I think as we get closer to the thing, it gets closer to us, to this darkness that we're heading towards. I don't know, it feels like something's reaching out from there.
Most certainly. You see, if the room was dark, that was no shadow. See, the very nature of a shadow is it is a shape coming between light and a surface. Oh, you saw something else. I don't quite know yet what, but if the room was dark, that was no shadow.
I think you would notice that Katvrad has, particularly as Sabanos says that, oh, there was no shadow. Katvrad's gotten a little pale. Eyes involuntarily growing wide. And doing just sort of looking, eyes darting around, and that way you do when you're remembering something, thinking of things. You're not looking at what's around you. And I think I would sort of involuntarily almost reach out towards you, Bastrad, and sort of just reach out and grab at your hand, and you would feel the trembling. I have never forgotten the shadow that It was mine. And the shadow that took Ingvarad. This shadow comes from the place that we are going. It is where I encountered it first. And then turning to Sabanos, pray to whatever God, whatever Colossi it is you pray to, that you do not see this shadow.
What does it still want with us? We've played its games, haven't we?
Have we? And I would hold my other hand up that's not sort of holding on to, and the way I'm holding on to Bastarad's hand with my left hand is it's very, especially with the difference in size between the dwarven Godfarad and the bonekin Bastarad, it's very much like a child holding a parent's hand. With the other hand, Darian, I just sort of look at you, and as if pulling out of the air, just summon a dagger. And it's mostly that liquid light, but you can still see those tendrils of shadow-like smoke that sort of twirl at the edges and shift around it. I have not been convinced that it is entirely done with me.
Yeah, Darian will kind of bite his lip at that, clearly sort of unnerved at the sight of like the shadow tendrils working through the light. And I'll kind of like subconsciously scratch at his like now marked arm. Seems everybody here is being haunted by something these days. But he'll just look back. I guess if anyone was gonna recognize a crooked deal, it should have been me, but it was foolish. It had access to us. It did nothing. Clearly there's something else that it wants.
And we're going where it came from. What if that was the plan all along?
Lure us there after it? To what end?
Ingvarad always cautioned me that this shadow, this power was beyond anything that we could understand, and always cautioned me to be careful of it. I thought I knew it. I thought I understood it as something that I had taken and controlled. But now I wonder, seeing where we are headed, and where I came from, I was never in control of it. It was using me like a puppet, like a marionette, the shadowy strings. And now it's taken Ingvarad. It's infecting Bastarad's dreams. You are marked. Who knows Harun and Sabanos?
Oh, I know. I have nothing to do with the shadow. I mean, I'm happy to. It's fine. It's just I'm not cursed or blighted or have nightmares or, but I'm happy to be aboard. Just wanted to make sure.
You found us, Sabnos. You're more cursed than you know.
Give it some time. I'm sure we'll get something on you at some point.
You all sound as though you're happy, like you're shooting for it. As we sail towards the ass of the earth.
Think of it as like a gang tattoo. You know, it brings us all together. Shows us
Yes.
we're a team.
No. Right then. Well. You don't strike me, any of you, as beggars. And hear me out. I'm not saying you're begging me, but you asked me to pray to whatever Colossiah I pray to. I seek to invoke no Colossiah. I seek no rapport with the corpse. I do not wish to beg for supplication or earnestly pray. But what I do is I stand next to all of you. Flesh, bone. Some more bone than others. He looks at Bastarod. And I say that my family probably disintegrated on impact when the city fell. I want to find out why they went through that. It was likely painless, but even I have to think about the terror that they felt in the pit of their stomach as they plummeted for what could have been an hour, watching the ground getting closer and closer and closer. And I almost feel closer to them now than ever as we sail closer and closer to this pit. For I see the ground getting closer and closer to me. But the difference is that I have something that I can do about it. I choose to do that for my family. And while you've known me a short time, I'm rather fond of some of you.
Bastarad smiles a little, thinking, I'm probably one of those.
I mean, we are the ones going to rescue the Colossiah bones. Maybe they should be the ones praying to us. Darren will kind of
Yes.
crack a smile at Sabanos.
And I would look at you as though you just said the best thing I've ever heard.
If this thing
Ingvarad,
really is luring us, bring it on, I say.
Ingvarad would have hated that sentiment. And then I let go of Bastarad's hand and I just sort of walk over to Sabanos. And since I can't really like reach up to his shoulder, I just give him a good punch in the thigh, like a Charlie horse. Like not quite that hard, but just like, it's all right. We like you too, man.
And Savanos would make some weird comment to the air about how he's been struck and what a strange place to be struck.
Excellent. The five of you, Haroon, having grown somewhat quiet, you know that the elf was close to Kaarast, at least for a time, and he seems to be taking his demotion and exile difficultly. So you all continue back through the darkness, returning to Thrice Strike, this massive monument of peace and treaties, truces that have all been signed here through millennia. These large 3 swords, pitted and weathered with age, but still towering 100 feet or more into the air. You know, nearby you have your ship docked, and you find it where you left it, moored in place. And you also notice that your ship, and now you, as you approach it, are in the shadow, once more, of the massive ship known as the Marauder's Mirage. This ship that is hardly there in some cases. Massive, onyx in color, and wreathed in a thick cloud of ether smoke, even now that it sits on the water, bound to the sea, much as your own ship. So as you board your vessel and start to work towards getting underway, is there anything else that is said or done before you leave this place?
I don't say anything, but looking at this shadow of the ship that looms over us, I look back over at Thrice Strike and I linger on all of the 3 swords, but a little bit longer on the sword of Arinovat. And as I hold my hand out to my side, it just slowly, this liquid light with shadow tendrils seems to drip down my hand and form into a great sword in the image of the sword of Arinovat, that I then, once it's fully solidified, I put onto my back. And as we are boarding the airship or getting ready to leave, I let that liquid light and shadow tendrils just sort of play across my whole body. As per usual, I summon my armor of shadows, bracing for whatever we're heading toward.
Darian, as we board our own ship, will look at this massive looming shadow of a ship behind us, and his mind can't help but tie together the shadow that Bastarad saw lingering, lurking in his room, the strange dreams that might have brought, and a look and see the shadow that haunts him and comes for him, and wonders if he has not been lured into a terrible fate by a shadow of a different sort. And I'll turn away from the ship, letting it cast behind him, as if there was a sun in front of him to put that shadow away. Try to cast it from his mind, but he'll feel it in every breath, the tingle in his arm, as he tries his best not to think about it, but can't help but do so.
I think Sabanos would look at Darian, and so Jeremy, this is like a meta sort of thing, but essentially, Sabanos has had he's just somehow come into money. He's not super wealthy, but he's also got some, and he's not really attached to it. He just whatever. He's wearing beat up clothes, at one point. Yeah. So the point is, he finally has something that he wants to spend that money on. Is there a place between where we are and where we're going where I could basically talk to Darian and say, hey, take me where we can get supplies? And when I say supplies, I'm looking for shadow killing swords and potions of light, like whatever. I've got some money to burn, and I'm like, hey, I want to have an ace up my sleeve. And that can even take place. Like, we don't have to literally do that now. That could take place narratively or whatever. But that's my intent, is to spend this money before we go into hell.
So, as luck would have it, they have told you that you are headed to the dwarven citadel known as Tolmulnumir. And Tolmulnumir is, like all dwarven cities, situated on the edge horizon. It is this dwarven citadel built at the edge of the world. And that's where you have to access the Down Under through a dwarven citadel. And they're the only ones who mine metal. It's the only place it exists, and it is in the Down Under. Metal and brimstone. And so the dwarves bring all of that up. They're the only ones who mint coin. They're the only ones who make metal goods. So there's a bunch of trade that goes through dwarven cities, mainly through human hands.
That's awesome.
It's a huge metropolis and has a bustling marketplace.
That's fantastic. And so as I I would imagine maybe Darian would kind of give me that information, about like, maybe even make an offhanded comment about like, of course, what do you think? We're going to the dwarven metropolis, whatever. And as soon as I hear that, I think, because Katvrad is very clearly dwarven, right? Like, like very clearly. I would just giddily, I would grab her by the shoulders and I would be like, bless your people's ingenuity. That is what I was looking for. And I am very excited to go and buy some of the things that we couldn't get at that last place we were at. I can't remember the name of it, but everything was made of bone and it looked like their toilets were not necessarily clean. This will be a day to remember.
Wait, bonekin use the forest for their biological needs. Where did you find a... Don't tell me. I don't want to know.
Oh, that... See, now that makes a lot of sense. Oh. I may have committed, I don't know what you'd call it, treason, sacrilege. You know what? It doesn't matter now. We're not prayers anymore. Off to the horizon.
You could say it was your duty.
Sorry. Yes, you could. Quite literally. Choose your spelling.
Remember when I said mature language? Well, I mean, we're just playing.
Yep.
Oh man, that got me good. Excellent. Okay. So, you make way and pull away from the shoreline of this bonekin scrap of land, and you turn towards the edge horizon, and you begin to sail towards Tolmulnumir. You are about a day into the journey, probably closing in on halfway, when one of you spots a ship approaching from the direction that you were headed. There are no crickets in the sea. Otherwise, we would hear them now.
I imagine, I can't remember if we've established this or not, that we have a spyglass on board. Did I buy a spyglass?
I would imagine. You guys had quite a bit of equipment and treasure and things that had been brought on board whenever you found this ship in Belorion.
Because I feel like being on this airship, there's definitely something Cutfarad would have wanted. And especially as we are heading toward Tolmulimir, I imagine I'm the one that's probably up near the bow of this ship. Maybe even moving around a lot, but constantly looking through the spyglass, trying to see if I can spot where we're our destination before anybody else. Periodically, turning it back towards the Doom Shadow ship behind us. But so yeah, I would imagine it would be just another sort of following this routine and bringing the spyglass around and something suddenly coming into view and then swinging back. Is it at this range? What can I see of this ship?
So at some distance off, whenever you spot it, you can see an awful long ways whenever there's no curvature to the world. And you notice that its sails are light in color, just because you can see the reflection of the moon and the starlight, even in the long night. It's not an overly large ship. It's nowhere near as big as the Marauder's Mirage, but it's probably 4 times the size of your ship.
I don't want to alarm anyone, but there is another ship, another airship coming this way, or another ship coming this way.
Well,
Good. Nobody seems alarmed by that.
how far off? There may be no reason for alarm.
Well, given that it's heading toward us and not away from us, I think that it will come much quicker than perhaps we would expect. But it's even at this distance, it looks to be a very bigger than us. It's far enough away that I can't tell much about it.
And you would hear Sabanos very sort of, it almost seems deliberate, but it's probably involuntary. As you say this, and you say, oh, you're having a conversation. I think he would just, and he's sleeping somewhere strange. Who knows exactly where, but you could just hear the snoring and he's under some stuff. I don't know what's going on there.
So is the plan to just continue forward on your heading and see what happens?
I think without any extra information about what this ship might be carrying, if it's going for us or if it seems to be dangerous, that going ahead until we can get better eyes is probably the best thing.
Absolutely. So you sail on, and it becomes fairly apparent that the Marauder's Mirage spots this ship soon after you. They change their tack from following at a bit of a distance to coming up almost to the point where they're actually in your ship's wake, literally like a shadow on your back. And you can hear orders being shouted on the deck of this massive dark ship, and people are scrambling all over the place, preparing for whatever might happen. As you cruise closer towards one another, eventually you will get to a point where you can see the pattern on the sails and a little more detail of this ship. So anybody who is looking through this spyglass to try to discern anything, please go ahead and roll a perception check. Darian, if you make this roll, you will have advantage.
All right. I'm still not used to the way the sea moves. Every time I move the spyglass up, the bow goes down. I move it around, the pitching and the yawing. I cannot get enough of a look, and I'd imagine just maybe at this point I've moved closer to wherever Darian is, and just with a frustration, God, can't see a damn thing, and just kind of shove the spyglass at Darian. I got a 5 on my perception check.
Yeah, Darian will take the spyglass. Much more adept with managing the waves and having extensive experience with doing literally exactly this. With advantage, we'll get 19 on the die for a 22 all up.
That's with Kutvrod sort of bumping into you every once in a while because I still don't know how to stand on the deck of this thing.
Okay. So at the very least, Darian, whenever you take the spyglass and look through it, it takes you a moment to light it up, to bring it into focus, and there's that moment of like ice cold stone that like drops into your stomach as you realize that this ship is the Sinner's Sanctuary. This is the ship that you have been chasing, that you know brought the Throes of Sunset to this very same dwarven citadel.
Yeah, I think there will just be this moment of like Darian's like adjusting the spyglass, trying to get it into view, and then Kotbrad will just hear like off to the side, just shit.
I know it's so hard to get a good line to see, isn't it?
It's not that. He'll just like totally dismiss like the joke. That's them. The ship that brought the throws. Need to be ready for anything. We can see them. They've certainly seen us. So if they're bent on coming for us, they'll be here.
Darian, likewise with your perception that you rolled, you can tell enough detail to see, and your familiarity with the ship, to see that she's riding really low in the water. So she has heavy cargo.
Although, he'll kind of say as he continues to look, whatever they've got, it's weighing down even the ship of that size. Maybe they'll be afraid of a fight. If their ship gets damaged, it'll go down quick. If it's valuable, they won't want to risk it. Still, be ready.
What's the status of, I guess, trade coming out of Tolmonimir?
So, yeah, it's again, it's incredibly lucrative. Your particular citadel has been set up nicely for a long time, for generations and generations, and you know that it's very likely that they're carrying, if they did trade with the people of Tolmonimir and are taking exports, then it's likely that they would be laden with coin, brimstone, weapons, and possibly even raw metal.
Yeah, that's mostly what I was concerned with. Is if trade's in a normal state, then that shouldn't seem at all odd that there's a ship running low, running heavy coming out of there. So, okay.
Okay. So you continue to wait, getting closer and closer, and soon all of you notice the shadow on you begins to shift. The moon and the stars are blocked out in a different pattern as the Marauder's mirage begins to speed up. It lowers additional sails. It begins to go around your ship.
Darian, are they doing what it looks like they're doing?
Very well could be. You know, the sorts of ships that I used to go on. This one's probably no different.
Okay. The Marauder's mirage begins to pull away from you, closing quickly with the Sinner's Sanctuary. Very soon, the two of them are close enough that they begin moving into broadside positioning. Before long, the sound and smell of dwarven brimstone waft to you as you hear the enormous, thunderous reports of cannon fire. And you see their blasts lighting up, reflecting from the water beneath, and lighting the sky and the ocean of the long night. They are embroiled in a battle. What are you going to do? Are you joining this fray? Are you slowing and waiting for it to finish? Are you moving past? How are you approaching this situation?
The longer the ship stays on a steady course, the more frantically I'm tugging at Darian's sleeve. We're not going to go toward that, are we?
I don't think that's a good idea, unless we want to go down to the bottom of the ocean.
Oh, I think we have to go around. We have to avoid this. We're on a course. We have things to do. We can't be waylaid. Not like this. Not by these petty squabbles.
The Sinner's Sanctuary sold out the world for some coin. They get what's coming to them. But I agree. We have no place here. This is our chance to move forward.
Got back a day ago from...
So, just to clarify, just in case Jeff may not remember, that is Alias' ship. As a reminder, because it's been some time. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that you understood that that's what I was getting at.
I
It's
do
fine
understand.
with me. Darian is a cold bastard. It's fine. Okay. You change tack and begin to sail around this battle. It rages on. You can see that the Marauder is a much larger ship, and by the look of it, has some magical assistance that helps it fight. But the Sinner is faster and has elven tech ether weapons, and it sounds and looks like new cannon from the dwarves. Each of you, if you would, please, describe some of these weapons and attacks that we're seeing between these two ships. What do these volleys look like?
I imagine almost looking in awe as this is happening, being somewhat in the know of the dwarven ingenuity, the dwarven technology. This is the first time that I'm seeing a weapon that I had only heard of as being an idea once before. And it's an array, instead of having a large cannon, it's an array of 7 smaller cannon that every time one fires, they shift a new one into position, and so that they can load the others and continually fire without having to worry about reloads. And they call this weapon a brimstone hydra.
Just, you see, and by the meta, I feel like I'm the least qualified to do this because I don't know much about these ships. But I feel like the ship that's fighting back with the lighter sails, that's kind of trying to, I imagine that they have these cannons that are full of what seems like you hear these thunderous explosions, and then you're seeing no real muzzle flare or smoke, or you just hear the concussive blast, and then you hear these shrill sort of ringing sounds. And what they're doing is they're actually shooting rusty shrapnel from ships that they've dragged from the ocean floor. And so they've taken these shipwrecks that are basically covered in barnacles and rust and all this other stuff, and they're firing them, and it's just ripping through the flesh of the people on the deck of the other ship. They are extremely powerful, and while they're not really hurting that massive ship, you could see it's just taking off fingers, lodging in people's skulls, and they seem to have an endless supply of this detritus, just like firing at cannon after cannon after cannon, and people are just falling into the water.
Like the Marauder's Mirage, if any ship was going to have experience against other ships, it would be a ship like that one. And as such, it's developed weaponry specifically suited for that purpose. Because while the crew can replace itself, the ship is much more difficult in the middle of the ocean to fix. And it's developed this system where some of the cannons are rigged with these things that almost would look like large harpoons, but rigged into the edge of this harpoon are these brimstone explosives. So as they fire these like large spears almost into the side of the other ship to send this charge past the hull and into the middle of the ship before this charge will then explode, dealing damage to the infrastructure of the ship itself, aiming to pierce the hull to cause damage to the ship's infrastructure, to ruin it. so that it cannot continue to sail and will drown the crew with it if not dealt with immediately.
I'm having a hard time refining exactly how this works, but the thing I'm thinking is the Sinner's Sanctuary would be as a ship that is traveling in goods and leaving a place like this laden. They would expect some sort of attack, and their weapons are trained to defense, and expecting boarding parties and harpoons and ropes to be kind of jutted into the side of the ship. Some sort of like ether powered chain mechanism that like the chain swings down and breaks through rope like a sharpened chain or something that kind of can rip through any ropes or harpoons that are piercing into the side of the ship.
You all watch as this battle plays out with just this unending barrage of sounds and lights. And even at the distance that you've managed to put yourselves now, it's easy to hear the screams of panic, of agony, of death, as well as the sound of splintering wood and likely bone as well. But there's another noise that you hear. Something deep. Something beneath your ship.
I think that would be the moment that Sabanos would wake up. And it wouldn't be, there's nothing like comical about it. It's terror immediately, like something that big and booming. I don't even know if Sabanos is really feeling super comfortable on the open water in the first place. So he's the kind of person that looks out to the deep and just imagines all the awful stuff that's under the water.
Would this be a sound that Darian has heard being on the water a lot, or is this new even for him?
I think that this would be new even to Darian.
I think that that would be apparent on his face. He's normally the one sort of taking charge when it comes to moving the ship and like getting across the water. And I imagine as this sound rings out and the other people look to him for like answers as to what's happening, his face will just like go pale and his eyes will go wide. And it's clear that like he's lost in this too, just as much as anyone else might be.
That's the moment that I'm turning to Tyrion to go, Tyrion, please tell. Oh, shit. As I just see that look on your face. Oh, no. What do we do, Darian?
He'll just like kind of, I think, like stutter for a moment, trying to find answers in the open water, looking around as if he'll see something on the horizon that might give him a clue. And just seeing water.
Looking back towards where this battle is happening, all of you can see a faint glow, a blue light, deep underneath the water. beneath these two ships. And you realize that this glow is growing larger and brighter by the moment. Just as these calls, this booming, thrumming voice that you hear, likewise is growing closer.
Let's put some distance between ourselves and that light. Come on, people. And Bastrad will be kind of just like snap into like Darian's not responding and he doesn't seem to know what to do, and so Bastrad's just going to like assume what he thinks is probably the best plan, which is move away from this light and try to make this noise smaller and quieter and further away. Let it have them. If they take the Marauder's Mirage, maybe it'll get Darian out of his bind anyway. So,
Darian, speaking of which, it's about the time that this noise is growing louder and this light is growing brighter and closer. Your arm begins to writhe, and pain begins to shoot up your arm.
Yeah, I think Darian was sort of just crying out in pain, like clutching at one arm with the other, just as a like grimace. Kind of like I imagine shirk away from the wheel of the ship for a moment before like trying to like grab it with the one arm that's not writhing in pain to keep it stable and on course. But like very clearly hurt.
Not a moment later, the ocean around you begins to swell. Storm clouds erupt and spiral out away from the Marauder's Mirage, soon filling the sky with thunder, lightning, and pouring rain. As you are consumed by an ether storm. But the sea in its swelling is not large waves that are threatening to knock you over. You realize the water that you are on, as well as the water that these two ships are on, is beginning to rise almost in a bubble, a rounded shape. And then you see something tall, towering, dark, pitch black as night, erupt from the water somewhere between you and this battle. It extends upwards, looking like it's going to reach up and pluck the stars out of the sky before it curls, and you realize it is an enormous tentacle. Another erupts miles away from the first. And then another, miles still, on the other side of this battle. They continue to erupt from the surface like a forest that is growing in an instant right before your very eyes. The water breaks apart, this massive cascade of waves as a creature erupts through the surface.
When you said we were almost at the end of the campaign, I didn't know you meant tonight.
guys doing?
Staring in abject horror.
Darian, you now have a kind of clarity that comes very rarely in life. When all doubt is removed, and the only thing that remains is certainty. In this moment, you know with absolute certainty that this is the Kraken.
There'll be that moment of realization of the reality dawning on Darian as he sees this creature erupt. And even with the pain that still like writhes in agony from his arm, he'll like let both of his arms just like hang down away from the wheel of the ship, just like staring up in like horrified amazement at this thing, ignoring the pain, like ignoring the fear, the rush. He like can't help but be like transfixed by like such a legendary thing appearing here in this moment. I think just those words alone will like slip from his mouth. It's like the only thing he can just say is just
Stunned into silence, you press on, trying to put as much distance as you can between you and this thing. The scale of this monster dwarfs even the Marauder's mirage. This thing is the largest living creature you have ever seen. It rivals the size of most Colossiahs. You watch as these tentacles come down with enormous strength, striking almost as frequently as bolts of lightning tear down from the clouds that surround its head. All of which, tentacles and lightning bolts alike, all of them striking only the sinner's sanctuary, does not leave a scratch on the Marauder's mirage. And before long, you can only see the burning wreckage that manages to float for the few moments past this battle. The last thing that you see as you sail away are the remaining tentacles of this creature closing in, wrapping around what remained of this ship and pulling it from sight. Soon, you can hear the voice growing more and more distant as the light begins to fade back into the depths of the ocean. I think this is where we're going to take our break. So, 5 to 10 minutes, refill your drinks, kiss your spouse, go to the bathroom, smoke them if you got them, etc., etc. Is Jake frozen? Or is he... Oh.
Just frozen in fear.
He was so still. So, thank you everybody so far for a fantastic time this evening. I cannot wait to get to the second half. We finally get to see the dwarves. I'm so excited. So, yeah, thank you so much for tuning in this evening with us, whether you're watching along live or in the future. But sit tight, and we will be right back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back from our break. We are here with session 20 of our Momentum campaign, Whispers and Fragments. I'm having a fantastic time so far. I love getting to showcase this world as well as uncover the story that has been happening to these characters. And I'm really eager to get to this next part. So I think without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get back into it. You have just witnessed something that has likely not even been dreamed of, or a nightmare in anybody's mind in a lifetime. Something that is wholly unique and terrifying. This ancient beast that has just sunk the Sinner's Sanctuary and left you and the Marauder's Mirage intact. As you sail away from the site of this battle towards Tolmunimir, is there anything that's being discussed? Are you guys saying anything to one another? Are you doing anything just before you arrive in the Dwarven Port Citadel?
Darian will find himself like flooded with so many different emotions, many of which I think would surprise him, as he'll like turn back and see the wreckage of the Sinner's Sanctuary. Will find himself emotional, fighting back tears, even in grief. He's not really sure. He hadn't been on good terms with anybody on that ship for quite some time now. And then I think there would also be anger, like at himself for feeling that grief when he knows that he has no reason to. It's like this confusing wash of emotions as he still has the adrenaline pumping, his heart like pounding as if to break out of his own chest from the sight of this monster. And then suddenly this just huge, amazing wash of this entire spectrum of human emotion, relief, grief, sadness, anger, all just like bombarding him all at once. And I think he'll be almost shell shocked from the combination of it all. Tears will just like roll down his face, unacknowledged by himself. He won't even bother to wipe them away or to say anything to anybody about them unless somebody else asks first. Is just overwhelmed in every possible sense, I think, at the moment from seeing that and trying to come to terms with the fact that something of that magnitude just happened to them.
I think that Sebanos would be sort of pushing himself into the data of that encounter and like what that means. And so you'd hear him murmuring like, a creature that large would require 38 tons of food every 4 hours, unless it had 2 stomachs. But then it did have, was that 2 mouths or 1 large mouth? And he was just kind of like, that's the only way he can work through it, is to try to figure it out and quantify it and classify it and categorize it and all that stuff. And so he's lost in his own world trying to make sense of this thing that made him feel insignificant. Subconsciously, he pushes that away. Consciously, maybe even, but that's really what's going on, is he's trying to exert control of the situation by categorizing and explaining it.
Anything else? Bastrad, Godfrey, anything?
Bastard would notice Darren's tears, but kind of hold back and let him process. It doesn't seem like the time to approach him. So Vastrad will notice and hold back, but kind of hold on to that fact for later.
I'm just quietly processing the fact that when I was delving into hell, I saw demons. I've seen devils pull people apart. I've had close calls with demons. But I never imagined that there could exist something in this world that would make hell seem like a preferable place to be.
One last thought will intrude into Darian's mind. Against his will, he's trying so hard not to let it into his thoughts, but he can't help it. But think back to the conversation before, when he was first marked by those who now seek him. The words of his companions that when we make it out of hell, that they'll get him away from them too, away from the mark. He knows now that's a lie. There's no way.
I think Haroon tries to give some words of solace, but I think even he might, in this moment, be somewhat at a loss for what those words might be. You continue on, sailing for several hours more, before you notice beams of bright light that are piercing the long night ahead of you as they rotate around and around from the top. This is the lighthouse of Tolmunimir, a beacon that warns ships as they are beginning to near the edge horizon. As you approach the very boundary of existence, if you would, please describe what it is that you are feeling whenever you see the edge of the world and the sea of stars stretching out beyond it for eternity.
Vastrad, upon seeing this, immediately all he can think is how much he wished his family was here to see this. The Vidaris and the Kari and Imbrad, and just wishing that they could experience this. And he's overcome with the endlessness of everything beyond. And just struck by how small he feels and how impossible the task ahead of him is, and how if he succeeds, he may not be as small as he feels, but he knows that it's such an infinitely tiny chance for anything to happen. And he's just kind of lost in this confusion, just staring out into this blackness with stars.
Darian feels the way that you might feel if you were trapped for a long time in a dark room, like without any light of any sort. But then the first light that you see is like that stale, like office fluorescent light that's like super harsh, where there's this like release of this darkness that he can now finally see through again, seeing like the wonder of this thing, but it's like somehow unsatisfying. Like the sun would be so much better than this like stale fluorescent glow. Um, and though he can't help but like marvel similarly at like the beauty, the wonder, and the size of the edge of the world to see the dwarven structures looming, the stars behind it, going off into forever. There's a part of him that's still stuck in the sea, feeling the waves and the roar of the kraken, and he can't appreciate, I think, the beauty and the scale of this moment nearly at the level that somebody should be able to. Kind of still washed with everything that's just happened, and it'll diminish what should have been perhaps one of the most beautiful things he's ever seen, into like barely a small comfort against what's now become horror on all sides.
Sabanos would actually think of Sibiana. And Sibiana is actually the last person who truly understood Sabanos. She was the one who taught him to be perceptive and was the most understanding of his we'll say, I don't want to call it a condition, but his state of mind and the way that he processes information as a child. So this childhood nanny would always speak of this place, and maybe she was even dwarven. I don't know, or partially dwarven, or related to the dwarves, or had some sort of dwarven ancestry. But she would always speak, maybe even sing of this place, and so this is actually probably a bittersweet moment for Sabanos, because he remembers Sibiana when he sees this, understanding what it is, understanding what he's looking at. But then he remembers the last time that he encountered Sibiana, where she was spectral in a bog, and he gave her this, ether vial, and then set her free by slaying her, really. But Sibiana was always the one that taught me to separate facts from emotion, because it's what I did so naturally. And she helped me navigate that. And so as I look at it, I separate facts from emotion. And I simply have the thought of, well, she would have enjoyed this, but she's dead, so she can't.
As the rotating rays of light wane and wax, growing brighter as we grow closer, the first feelings are that inevitable lump in the throat, that feeling in the pit of the stomach of excitement and nervousness, of seeing a familiar place after being gone for so long. I left this place not sure if I would ever come back to it. And now seeing it, there's just this thrill of, I'm back. But then I start to remember the road that it's taken to get here, the costs. I start to remember the fact that Ingvarad is not here to share. I then start to remember, at first, seeing the surface levels of familiar structures. All of these feelings come washing in, and then I start to remember what goes on beyond that depth, and a flood of images memories of delves into hell, quick flashes of seeing the toil that took place of the dwarves delving, but also the quick flash of the young man who was ripped in half by a demon, the memories of home, the memories of the all of the things that meant home, memories of my father, memories of home cooked meals, learning the trade, and then somehow, though it's been buried for so long, a flash of a older dwarven woman's face with flowing red hair. Mom. And it's like that illusion, just all of those memories just shatter and begin to crumble and turn into shadow as I have to push, almost physically gripping the railing of the ship, push that memory down and back. And the last thing that I see as that memory pushes away is the face of my mother sort of shifting because I'm willing it to look like the face of Ingvarad.
Your ship passes this lighthouse, entering the bay beyond, if you will. And now that you are close enough, you can see the dim lights of the dwarven citadel of Tolmunimir as it rises high above the sea level and blacks out the moon and the stars of the sea of stars beyond. Through the guidance of Katvarad and under the steerage of Darian, you navigate the docks and channels that lead you to a place where you will be able to dock. But as you're doing so, looking around you, you can see, for those of you who are not familiar with a dwarven citadel, that at least Tolmunimir is a fortress port. The walls, as you make your way inside, are made of stone. There are places that are clad in steel. They rise some 30 to 40 feet off of the surface of the water. And you can see, very periodically, what are gun emplacements. Enormous cannons, mortars. Every single one of them is being manned, several of which are trained on your ship as it makes its way through the harbor. However, though it is armed with an impressive array of this artillery, the dwarves do welcome trade with open arms. They just happen to safeguard their citadels against pirates very, very well. Before you finally dock, is there anything that you'd like to accomplish before you disembark from the ship? Nope. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Jake. Whenever you're...
I lost my mouse. I couldn't get to the mute button.
Uh-oh.
It was gone across to my monitors. As we get ready to disembark, I just sort of wait until everybody's sort of gathered. And then I put myself in front of the gangplank before anybody can disembark, interceding between them all. Look, hold on a minute. Just remember, this is where I come from. There are people here that know me. Please don't embarrass me. And that's it. And then I would actually make sure to lead down the gangplank, to be in the front, leading everybody off the ship. I would change out my packed weapon before we disembarked to no longer be the great sword of Arenavat. And I just hold my hand out, and it's been a long time since I've summoned this, but I summoned Kelp's Requiem, the brimstone pistol, into my hand, and then put it into the leather holster that I'd crafted for it. It feels more appropriate to have a brimstone weapon here in my home.
As the ship comes closer to the dock to actually moor into place and the gangplank will be lowered, all of you can look around and see that Kotvarad is not the only one sporting a hellhound or a hellcat. These long and short brimstone-fueled firearms used by the dwarves. There's probably more of them just in this moment as you're docking than you've probably ever seen at one time, ever before. It seems almost every dwarf is carrying some form or fashion of one. And you can see the city around you is just like every other city. You know somewhere there is a Colossiah here. Tolmunimir, whoever that might have been at one time, the god or goddess of something probably dwarven in nature, delving itself perhaps even. Here at the edge horizon, the dwarves then built atop this place, this Colossiah, and through generations built layer upon layer. They built not only upwards and, downwards off the edge of the world, but also to either side, adding their extensive halls and towers that expanded in all directions. You can see carvings, statues, steles that have writing carved on them, made of stone and metal. Everywhere you look, there is sculpture on display. And it would seem that each of the buildings has a function, a purpose, that is made very apparent by the sculptures that are on the outside of it. You can see one of them is a storage house. One of them looks like it is, the dock office, the dockmaster who would check you in, and so on and so forth. There's this enormous, long-lasting architecture everywhere you look. As you disembark, step out onto the pier and begin making your way towards the center of Tolmunimir. Very quickly, you start hearing the merchants that are closest to the docks hawking their wares, trying to get your attention, trying to get your coin, trying to get anything they can trade for their goods and wares. Another voice, however, floats towards you, Sabanos, your slightly pointed ears. Sabanos! Sabanos!
And you could see that the majesty of all of this is he's just counting all these things and looking at as you say, this endless architecture, and he's telling himself, well, nothing's endless, so how big is it? And sort of like and yes, who and he's just very surprised that anyone would know him here.
You turn, looking for this voice, and if this weren't a crowd of dwarves, you might not be able to pick out the familiar face that you now see. But just slightly taller than your average dwarf, you see your friend, Voyente. Voyente Nawadorn, a dwarf that you know who has accompanied you many times before, who you know has an uncanny understanding of where he needs to be and when. He cuts through the crowd, spying you with this monocle he wears over one eye, waving his hand above his head, trying to get your attention as he closes the distance between. Sabanos!
Voyente! What?
I had a hunch you might be here.
How did you... Why are you...
He kind of like thumbs his nose and then strokes this white patch through his beard. You know, I've always known where you were, where you needed to be, where you needed to go. One step ahead of you as always.
Well, it's good to see you. So Sabanos purposefully doesn't admit that. He doesn't succeed like, oh yeah, you're right. He just doesn't negate it either. Which technically isn't a lie. And he says, well, and maybe for the first genuine time that if anyone else is seeing Sabanos, this sort of, for half a moment, this human side comes out, and he says something like, it's very good to see you, old friend.
I'm glad that I was right. Again. What brings you to Tolunimir? I mean, again, I thought that you might. Deductive. It made sense that you would come, but...
Oh, certainly, yes. That's elementary. But the reason, well, it's really quite and I think what I would do is I would kind of montage him of like, just especially the most recent happenings, starting with the tar and why it's dried up and all this. And I feel like it would be like this back and forth between two contemporaries. Voyente probably noticing things or even ribbing me about things I should have noticed. And, oh, you should have done this. And this is how, and then I would sort of retort back of why that wasn't possible and get him to this place where we are now. I would not mention the Kraken. I notably leave that out just because I'm still trying to process that. And I think that there's even a part of Sabanos who would almost be explaining it away, or maybe even thinking that he imagined it larger, or there's no way, maybe there were two of them. But yeah, that's pretty much where we would. So I would catch him up to where we are now. I trust Voyente, so I would give him all the information that I know about the cult, about why we're coming here, about, going into hell and all these things. But I would say it very matter of factly, with no worry, just sort of carefully, so that not others would hear it easily, but still sharing the information very freely.
Voyente listens with a keen ear and definitely chides a few times, all in good fun. And the rest of you, as Sabanos and this dwarf who introduced himself as Voyente, kind of carry on and catch up. Is there anything that the rest of you are saying, or how is it that you're taking this conversation, or what are you doing in the meantime?
Well, Bastard was watching with rapt attention when he heard a genuine tone come out of Sabanos. Like that caught his ear, and he began to just kind of like, wait, what? And he just started kind of like trying to quietly listen to their conversation to try to suss out what their relationship had been like, or how close they were, and like if this was somebody that might be able to actually help us. Bastard is basically trying not to think about the Kraken in general. By the way, that's why I haven't mentioned it. Like he's trying to just avoid the thought of it, because right now it's like, nope, all the Colossiahs are dead. Nothing that big exists. That was some weird thing that we were seeing, some weird magic that the Marauders did. Doesn't exist.
I'm just doing that that thing where I'm looking around, just looking for familiar faces. Not going out of my way to like look for anybody in particular, but just seeing, do I recognize any of these people? And also a part of it is just sort of positioning myself in a way, kind of hoping somebody sees me. There's a lot of people here for me to try to recognize anybody in particular, but I'm hoping that maybe I stand out as just one person that a lot of people, or a handful of people, might recognize. Oddly, not even thinking about the Kraken. I think upon stepping foot here again, a familiar shift has sort of happened in my thinking. So often as a delving into literal hell and seeing the horrors we would see, you learn to just push that stuff back and not think about it once you're back on the surface. And I think the moment my feet touched down on the surface here, it was like muscle memory. It wasn't even a conscious decision. It was that same thing of coming back to the surface. You just push behind the horrors you saw and didn't think about it. So I would say Katvarad's definitely got this a little lighter in step, maybe a little more of that ain't eager, almost ADHD teen, kind of just standing there like Sabanos is having a conversation. We're all kind of patiently waiting, but looking around.
So, I think Voyente and Sabanos's conversation continues for a bit. as he walks with you guys kind of towards and through the marketplace, it's obvious that you at least have to head this direction first. And he looks... Shocked is not the right word. It's hard to be shocked whenever you've known Sabanos as long as you have, to know that he's up to something out of the ordinary. But I think whenever you mention that your plan is to delve into the Down Under, he kind of looks a little taken aback for a moment. He says, "But you can't delve without the permission of the crown. Just the 5 of you are going to somehow sanction a delve on your own?"
Well, I mean, who owns the edge of the world anyway? I mean, really. It's less about being sanctioned and more about not being noticed. What is a sanction anyway? Permission?
Yes. Yes, all expeditions into the hellscape it must be sanctioned. Not just by the crown, it has to be... The rituals must be observed. If not, it would welcome... well, more devastation than you can imagine.
I imagine speaking up at this point, almost apologetically. I might not have exactly gone into all of the details of what it was we would have to do if and when we are going to delve. There are he's right. There are a lot of intricacies and permissions and things that have to be done. They just
Well, I
didn't.
would
They
imagine-
they didn't know. I didn't tell them. I say to this dwarf.
I would imagine that saving everyone is a good enough reason for whoever makes the decisions, right?
Well, perhaps, but I cannot speak for them. That is why I'm not a king or a queen. But perhaps, maybe, they will give you permission. Just the 5 of you? You don't have a crew to go with you, or a minced kona to accompany you?
Not yet, we just got here.
Oh, and of course, yes, right.
We were likely hoping that someone, perhaps someone like you, could help us acquire these things. Sabanos, you know this man. Is he a reliable type?
Yes, I would say. Probably reliable by definition. Purely. That's
By definition.
Master
Yes,
just files that away in his mind is like, okay, so if Sabanos says he's reliable, file him away as unreliable.
And Sabanos would continue and say, yes, it's rather annoying. Sometimes, you're so consistent and so reliable that it's a bit boring, a little predictable, and
My reliability
spoils.
has gotten your butt out of more jams than I can count, Sabanos.
Yes, he's very reliable, and yes, I don't know what the minimum number of a crew is, but and he sort of looks around at everyone here. He's like, if we added you, I think that's all the crew we need, unless you know of anyone else looking for work. And I am looking for, anything about the permissions. Let's forego for the moment and say that this is more of a preparations conversation. assuming we do follow the rituals and the things that are necessary, which I'm sure we'll try. The question is, where can I get the sort of equipment, the sort of crew, the sort of weapons one might need to climb into the ass of the world?
Subtle as always, Sevenos, but all around. He kind of like gestures widely, and you can see that down in this marketplace, this dockside market, there are dwarves that are engaging in every manner of vice you can imagine. These dwarves all have something about them that is very apparent that they are approaching becoming scorched. What happens to a dwarf whenever ether and their inner demons take over, when they become monster? These dwarves have horns that jut out of their foreheads and skulls. They have eyes that glow with the color of lava. They have skin in places that is cracked and blackened, almost like scales or broken earth. Some of them have long black nails on the ends of their fingers. Some of them have sharpened teeth. These are delvers. Gatvrad, as you are looking around, remembering these rituals and rites now, kind of running through a mental list of what you remember, knowing that permission is going to be difficult, as you don't have one non-dwarf with you. That you're going to be asking for permission, maybe, to take 4 non-dwarves with you on a delve. And as you're looking around, you happen to spot something that kind of jars you out of this little mental ticker tape. You notice something very familiar sitting on the side of a market stall that is a part of this merchant's wares. And you see a second thing that's familiar, and then the third, and before you know it, there's dozens of items that you notice. These are decoratives from the Kybrick clan hall. These are things from your ancestral home.
Without a without a word, just kind of like you said, just doing these mental calculations, thinking this stuff through. Probably oddly looking like Sabanos does when he does his matter of fact calculations. I imagine sort of scanning over the table and almost that with that second level of consciousness, recognizing these things, and then just kind of, wait a minute. And you might, whoever's closest to Katvarad would actually hear just a very, what the fuck? And just storm over there and start looking closer at some of these items and then looking at the merchant. What, and grabbing things like smaller things, like grabbing this and this and this. How do you have these things? Why do you have these things? Where did these come from?
You realize as you're pulling piece by piece away from this stack, this pile, that there's a female dwarf standing beside you who seemed as though she was ready to purchase a large number of these items. And she turns towards you, Katvarad, and you can see a face that is not unfamiliar to you. She rounds on you, looking angrily down at you, her face tattooed with the image of a skull. What are you doing? Katya? This is Sonia.
Okay. I think for a moment, just caught in the just the absurdity of what's happening, seeing this other dwarf holding on to, perhaps holding a couple of these items, I actually go to snatch something from her. No, these do not belong to you. These, and then hearing the name Katya, these don't belong. And I have in my hand a copper mug, probably one of the simpler items that's in there, with the fine dwarven workmanship of the Kybrit clan emblem on it. And as she says my name, and I recognize who she is, in that silence, you just hear that ting, 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 as that copper mug drops to the ground at our feet. Sonia.
Katya, I haven't seen you in a long time. You're alive.
I am, and so are you. That's good. That's very good.
You left me in the Down Under. I didn't know what happened to you. I only assumed. Katya, why did you run?
In an effort to sort of dodge her question, I sort of shake my head and look at her, and then just sort of shift my position to reassert my stance, to sort of not look so taken aback. It's it's actually Katvrad now, Sonia. My name.
Oh. I see. Katvarad. Please. And she kind of turns and kind of says to the merchant, I'll take it all, please. And she kind of drops a large sack on the table with like a heavy clink. We should go somewhere and drink, I think. We should talk.
Yes. And I don't know what the others are doing, but Katya's not even thinking about them at this moment. There's no, hey, let me go tell my friends where I am, or what's going on. She's completely, for the moment, forgotten them. Yes. And while Sonia's claiming all of this stuff, this Kybric belongings, I think I sort of sheepishly pick up the now slightly dented copper mug that I dropped and just set it next to the pile of things. And will, I guess, as they're, for some reason in my mind, I'm picturing them going into like Walmart bags, but like, helping her with what I imagine are probably some canvas bags, and even some of my own stuff, just to help carry these items. But
She kind of reaches up and kind of wraps around your own hand whenever you grab the handle or go to let go of the handle of the copper mug, and she kind of shakes her head. Moma, please keep it. It is yours, after all. I will explain, Katya. Katvara, excuse me. But we can leave this for now. I will be back, she says to the merchant. Please, just package it all up, and I will return. Or maybe here. And she kind of reaches into her like breast pocket and pulls out a small scrap of paper and a pen. Very quickly jots something down and hands it to the merchant. You can have it delivered, just whenever is convenient. And she kind of sprinkles a few additional gold coins from a pocket onto the paper. Please, come, Gunther. Please. The rest of you...
I will follow her while suddenly becoming very aware of this lone singular copper mug that is in my hands as I follow her.
The other three of you, I'll leave it up to you whether any of you notice this exchange happening with Kadvarad and this other dwarf.
Yeah, I imagine that Bastrad keeps a fairly close eye on Caparad especially when they're like out. Even amongst dwarves and among her people, he's going to be kind of watching out for her. But he sees like the look of recognition and something else in her face when she sees this other dwarf. So he's going to just kind of let the others know that it looks like Caparad has found someone she knows, but I think we should give him a bit of space to talk. She knows where to find us.
And I think Sabanos would be, still talking to Voyante, and he would sort of nod, but he wouldn't hear what you have said. But he would just, yes, of course. But really not taking in the information at all.
Darren would kind of look over his shoulder back to see them leaving. Not quite sure if leaving them is the best idea and letting them go. But not so convinced that he'll break away from what Bostrad says and just kind of nod as he turns his gaze away from them walking away. I'm sure.
Well, and I do want to ask, like, are they walking like? How are they walking, like, away? Like, what kind of area are we in? Are they just walking to like a little area that's like out of sight completely? Because there is a point where I think Bastrad is going to kind of get like that nervous dad energy and start like, okay, wait a minute. They're going a little bit further than I thought that they were. They're kind of no. I want to. Okay, I'll cut. And so he's going to just kind of follow along at a distance and just keep an eye, even though he knows he sticks out like a sore thumb in a town full of dwarves. Like
we didn't make a plan to meet up at the front of Wild Frontierland in 2 hours. So
yeah, we didn't have like enough of a specific plan to like completely split up. So like if he sees you start to like go out of sight, he's gonna like, all right, I'm gonna stay like a link, try to stay a link between these two, and if she keeps moving, I might go stop her.
Yeah, they're definitely like headed across the market square and like for a tavern, that's on the side of it or something. It's a place called it's called the Brimstone Bucket, and it's a fairly rough place. Bastrad, even you notice, like as the two dwarves are approaching, like a tangle of dwarves like fall out of the front door, like brawling with each other, and not like casually brawling. Like they're pulling each other's beards and like gouging for the other's eyes. It's a rough fight, and neither one of them looks sober.
Yeah, Bastard can't stop himself on seeing that. He's going to run up to the pair of dwarves and say, "Oh, Catbrad, there you are. I was hoping we could talk. We needed to talk with you. What are you doing? Hi, who are you?" And they'll like look down to Sonia.
Yeah, this dwarf kind of looks you up and down. We don't see many bonekin.
Uh, hey, yeah. Sorry, um, bastard dad. Uh, um, yeah, sorry. This is Bastarad, who is a very close and personal friend. And Bastarad, this is Sonia, who, well, though I've not seen her for a very long time, I have known her for longer than I've known any of you. And
Katvarad used to delve with me and the crew for some time.
Sonia was my mentor and my trainer and taught me everything that I know. And I'm sorry, Bastarad. I didn't mean to just take off like that, but I kind of forgot myself in this place. But I need to, and I sort of look down at this copper mug that I'm holding. Sonia and I need to talk about some things. We're just going to get a drink. Did
Okay.
you need to come?
He'll take one more look at this group of fighting dwarves, and then he'll kind of flash back in his memory to the like 4 times that when she was Katya, she almost killed the entire party with her insanely powerful magic, and he'll kind of take a deep breath, like, no, you go. We'll meet you out here when we're done. So just stay out front. Maybe stay out front when you're done with her if she leaves. It would be good to have someone watching your back in a place like this. But it was a pleasure to meet you, Sonia. You taught her well. And he'll kind of back off as respectfully as he can.
Yeah, so like while Bostrad is venting like this, Sonia's eyebrow is just like creeping higher and higher up this like tattooed forehead, and she kind of looks at you, Katvarad. Okay, well, yes, I will make sure she's safe. But if you want to stay close, that's probably a good idea. And she kind of looks at the tussle of dwarves that are like still scrounging and scrapping with one another on the floor. But what I have
Well,
to
if you
speak
insist,
with
I
her,
suppose I could use a drink.
what I have, she kind of like reaches up and puts a hand right in the middle of your chest, Bastarad, and pushes with a little bit of force. What I have to discuss with Katvarad is for Katvarad.
I look over her shoulder up at Bastarad. It will be okay. I will meet you out here when we are done. Remember, this is where I'm from. I know this place. and then I sort of reach up and take Sonia's hand, and I kind of mutter almost apologetically to her. I say a word in Dwarvish, something like, it's Haravanthal, which is sort of a generic, almost derogatory term that dwarves use for non-dwarves.
Is that while I'm still within the earshot?
I mean, you're standing right there, so
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So like I'm like backing away, but like yeah, Bastrad will kind of like as he's turning, will kind of like do like look at that like hey, but like he doesn't say anything, but he speaks Dwarvish.
something Cutthroat probably forgot.
That's perfect.
And no, I don't think I have ever mentioned Sonia to anyone before.
So Bastrad, you post up kind of outside this tavern, this brimstone bucket, while Katvarad and Sonia journey inside. The place is even rowdier than it is on the threshold, and Sonia walks over to a corner table where she grabs a dwarf who's passed out on the table by the scruff of his collar and literally just pulls him out of the chair that he's in and onto the floor beside the table before she sits down and gestures to another empty chair on the other side and waves the barkeep over. So, you've finally come home, but in the presence of a bonekin. It's strange to me, Gatvarad.
I'm also traveling with a human, an elf, and a half-elf.
Sounds like the beginning of a bad joke.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
The barkeep comes over and she orders 5 drinks, 2 for each of you, and she instructs that the 5th be taken to the big man outside. She aggressively downs the first one quickly and then slowly sets the glass down upside down. Before I tell you what I need to say, there were a lot of people who died on that delve, Katvrad. You and I were the only ones who survived. Up until just a moment ago, I thought that I was the only one who had made it back. Since it was my delve, it's good to see you again. Please, drink. And she kind of like gingerly kind of slides one of the drinks in your direction. Please.
I take the drink and for a moment look at it, and then just as aggressively as her, just slam this drink back. Placing it upside down on the table. Yes. I was I was wrong to leave and to not talk to you before I left. I was wrong on so many things. Sonia, you have to forgive me. I know that you have a lot of questions, and I will answer any questions you have, but a lot has happened since we last saw each other.
She nods as if understanding all too well that that is an understatement. Dotya, the reason I was buying the Kybric artifacts and decorations of your people, there's no easy way to say this, Godfrey, but Sergei sold your family's clan hall. Your father, he sold everything. He financed a delve into the Down Under with a rough group of people. There's some rumors that say that they were smuggling Colossiah bone. Your father headed that expedition, and he's never come back.
That doesn't make any sense. Why would he? Did you say they were smuggling Colossiah bones?
She kind of like hushes you. That is the rumor, yes. But Godfrey, do you know that ever since your mother died, your father has not handled it well. He has not been himself for some time. I hate to say it, but even something as drastic as this, it failed to surprise me. Godred, I don't know what to tell you. Your family's... I'm trying to buy as much of it as I can, but my funds are... well... whatever I have, obviously it is yours, without question.
Don't. I will pay you back.
There is no need. Your family has been more than generous to me. You owe me nothing. That's what I'm terribly sorry to be the bearer of this kind of news.
No. This is my fault. And I don't know how it is that of all of the things Father could do, this to be involved in this. I knew, even when I left, that he was not doing well. He was using ether more and more. That is... At this point, Sonia can see that Kotvrod is wrestling with something. She's got that untouched second drink that she just keeps sort of rolling the mug around, teetering, like doing that sort of absent-minded thing where you're just sort of fidgeting with something, and she's bringing the liquid inside as she's tilting it closer to the surface, to the edge, tipping it sideways until it almost spills over, and bringing it back, kind of moving it in a circle. And finally, she deliberately stops it, puts her hand over it. Sonia, I never talked to you when I left, because I never thought I would see you again. I never thought I would. To be honest, I never thought I would come back here. But it seems almost too ironic. I don't know if that is the word. That this is the second time today that I am talking about how it is more than coincidence that the path I have been on since I have left here has brought me back here. But it all started when I left. And I would begin to tell Sonia about the discovery of this shadow energy. I'm talking to her in very hushed tones, lowering my voice to just that right volume and pitch that, unless somebody is around, like deliberately listening in, I'm trying to blend in with the din of the crowd so that only Sonia can hear, leaning forward. And I begin to tell her about the discovery of the shadow and how it seemed to call out to me, and welcoming it in, and how I began to realize abilities and things. And then I tell her that, I know Sergei, I know Father. He was in such an ether stupor. I don't know that he ever truly remembers that night of Ma's death. I don't know that anybody but me knows what actually happened. And I look up from my mug of still untouched ale. Sonia, I killed Mother. And then my shoulders slump, and you see the tears starting to well up in the eyes. It was an accident. It was... I didn't understand this power.
Saying you can't mean that. You? How?
I didn't understand what this was, and I didn't understand the power that it could have over me. And we were arguing, Mother and I, as we always did, about Father and his growing addiction to Aether. And Mother, she just was trying to make me understand, and she turned suddenly to me, and I don't know if she was going to slap me across the face, or if she was going to pull me in for a hug, but I never found out. In that moment, the shadow energy, if I say, Ingvar had always told me that I had to know this for what it was, and then I would have said that it took over, and it was this thing that did it, but I know now that it was in my anger that I summoned it forth. And as Mother came at me, suddenly her eyes grew wide, and I looked in my hand, and I held a long blade of shadow, and it pierced through her. And when I realized what I had done, the shadow was gone. And she was dead.
Sonia sits there with her hand over her mouth for several measured beats of silence. Her eyes kind of dart back and forth, studying every aspect of your face, trying to grasp at the clues that she needs to make this make sense. Katvarad, I don't know what to say. Many of us, whenever we come back, we fight with these fiends that have taken control of us, that have possessed us, but I've never heard of such a thing. So sorry.
It's when I left, I spent time with the bonekin, and a bonekin named Ingvar. And she became like a mother to me. But she was also like a teacher, and I don't know if it makes sense, but she was like a mother and a grandmother and an auntie and everything all rolled into one. And I didn't always agree with her, and we fought. I didn't believe in her gods, and I didn't believe in her religion, and I argued with her. But it wasn't just her, it was Kelp. It was Haroon, Bastarat, and Darian, Sabanos. They've all been like teachers and family. And if you ask them, they will tell you, and maybe you would laugh it off as the dwarven nature, but I came close to getting all of them killed on more than one occasion. Almost like I was bringing the down under to the surface. But It was Ingvarad who I learned the most from. But this shadow, it came. It came for me. And Ingvarad, she wouldn't let it. She wouldn't let it. She went with it willingly. In place of me. She sacrificed herself, and we still don't know what happened to her, or where she is, if she is gone or not. But after she was gone, before she was gone, I got to say goodbye to her. And to tell her that I loved her, which was something I never got to do with Mother. I never did with Father. I never did with you. And when she left, that is when I changed my name to Kadvrat. And the shadow seemed to have mostly left me. And now, what was once shadow is light. And, gotcha. I kind of, at this point, she's trying not to be obvious as she's wiping her eyes and just, I'm sorry. I think it's just being home.
Nothing to apologize for.
Seeing you. I've not. Oh no. I've not even told Pastorat and the others about this. I've not told them about any of this stuff. I mean, they were there for everything that happened with the Shadow and with Ingvarad, but they don't know much about home. I've talked about the wonderful craftsmanship of Father and the reputation, and I've talked about delving and Sonia. You don't even understand why we're here.
I'm beginning to, I think.
We have been tracking people who have been selling and using the Colossiahs bones. And there were dwarves. I raced with dwarves. But they did that thing where they graft the bones onto them. Dwarves were doing that. And now you tell me that Sergei is involved in the Colossiahs bones too. Sonia, are you still delving?
She kind of leans back and crosses her arms across her chest. Thought you would never ask. We cut back outside. As Bastarad stands sentinel outside of this tavern for what is stretching on for several moments. Darian, Sabanos, is there anything else that you're getting up to in the meantime?
I feel like I would earnestly be trying to, so I'd probably be working with Voyente to specifically find a vendor, a merchant that Voyente trusts, or some sort of relationship. Maybe there's a favor owed or something where I can at least relatively trust the wares and the prices and all of the interactions and so on. So that's what at least I think I would be up to, and I would certainly try to talk Darian into coming, especially because I know that even though he's a retired rogue, there might be an opportunity to maybe, find something off the back of a truck. You just never know.
Yeah, I think it would be clear, probably to Sabanos, since he knows Darian and has a good eye for things. That like Darian is at this point is I think is like very visibly restless. Just like there's so much around, but like nothing to do. And like in this moment with everything that's just happened, on the ship to get here, and now that they're just like here waiting around in this totally foreign place, I think it would be like very obvious that Darian is just itching for anything at all to do, lest he just dwell on everything that's happened. Um, and he's like not ready to do that in this moment. And I think it would be very clear on his face, just somebody, anybody, like let's just go do what we're here to do, like right this second. So at the mention of like, hey, we're gonna go look for things, like it doesn't even matter what it is that we're looking for. Darian's just like is on board just to have something to point the spotlight of his attention at that's not his own brain.
So, as the two of you kind of head off, I imagine Haroon probably goes with you guys. And one of the things that Voyente kind of pushes, if you will, as being necessary, is the dwarves, among their metallurgy and stonemasonry and what they do with brimstone, they are also known as leather workers. They're very skilled leather workers, but there are no like beasts of burden, large cattle and things of that nature here. What dwarven leather goods are made out of is fiend leather. So they are, what he suggests is that you each perhaps upgrade the leather on your own armor, or replace it entirely if it is leather armor with fiend leather, because it will provide you with some protection against the insane amount of heat that exists in the Down Under.
That's awesome. First of all, fiend leather, like, come on, dude, that's great. And then I would absolutely, I would heed Voyente's, his guidance on that, and then, I would try to find fitting pieces that would, at least match what I know of my companions. Trying to find things that were the right size or shape, or, not just for me. And so, but I would absolutely be looking for something that would protect me down there. But if I could find some bracers for someone, or any sort of, Sabanos is this, he's seeing this as this weird experiment. And that's why it's not generosity. This is the price for ingredients. Like, and so that's what I'm thinking of doing.
Okay. So you can find something for everyone, but most of it is going to have to be altered, because of your companions not being dwarves. Most of them, at least. Yes, to answer your question, Austin, Bostrat can find leather clothing, essentially, like breeches and a jacket or a tunic or something made of fiend leather that it won't count as armor as far as mechanics go. but it'll still provide the same benefit.
Jeremy, if you'll allow
Yes.
it, I'd like to think that one of the items that was in the Kybrick clan stuff that Sonia bought is a chest. And in that chest is what was Katya's fiend leather armor that she left behind when she delved. So when Katya meets back up with everyone, at some point she will be wearing very custom designed fiend leather armor that I imagine has these blacks and blues with some red highlights, but most notably the Kybrick family, the Kybrick clan crest is worked into the leather on this armor.
Absolutely, and it matches the belt pouch that you carry that I think your father made for you.
Uh-huh.
It's this kind of black with like a reddish undertone to it, like this kind of shimmer. And yeah, the armor, if it's a full suit of leather armor, it's almost kind of all encompassing. It's a lot more bulky looking than a typical suit of leather armor is. Like the helm is almost completely and totally closed. It's got like a massive gorget that fits in kind of underneath the breastplate. It's almost like a firefighter's getup, only fantasy. So, if anybody is
So
interested,
that means that Katya walks in slow motion towards them with this and does the take the helmet off and throws her red hair in slow motion. Hey guys.
I was gonna say that it was a little upsetting because I spent a lot of money on a lot of loot boxes to try to get the Cot Broad Delver skin.
Right.
And then you just found it on a rando in the market. So I'm just saying.
I've been grinding for 6 weeks to get that. Where's my drop?
And Jake got it as a quest item off an NPC.
I was gonna say, an NPC just gives that to you.
You know how it is when you make certain character build selections, you get certain benefits. That's the dwarf build.
Fantastic. Okay, so who is upgrading their armor, and what kind do you have? We can figure out.
I definitely will. Darius just got normal studded leather right now.
Okay. So that is going to be 450 gold pieces. Very expensive. But you guys have a ton of money. Probably even before
literally.
We have like
literally a ton of
five-digit numbers of money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when we found the money originally, it was estimated around 25,000, I want to say. And we've barely spent any, and we've accumulated more. So I think...
Right. So, especially because the majority of what you had was elven in nature, because it was, an elf's boat that they had literally loaded up to try to escape the city and just never escaped the city. So it's all of these elven valuables. And I would imagine that it doesn't take very many of them here in this market to kind of rack up the equivalent of what the cost of kind of paying off your armor would be. Okay, cool. So everybody, if you would, go ahead and note that you have done that to your armor that is now made of fiend leather. It will give you resistance to fire damage.
Okay, excellent. I would also be looking for a either a short sword or a rapier, preferably some sort of rapier or an enhancement to the one that I have, or whereby the delvers would know, oh, hey, you need to make sure it's this, or this enchantment or whatever. That's also something else that I'd be looking for specifically.
Okay, so you can find that kind of stuff. Again, this is not like where you walk in and there's just, magical swords on a rack. It's not quite to that extreme. But if you ask around enough and kind of get directed here and there, eventually you can be led to somebody who has a few pieces that they've enchanted themselves, or that kind of thing. So you can certainly find a sword that deals radiant damage, which you are told effectively works very well against fiends.
Okay, awesome.
So you're looking for a rapier?
If possible, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it would be pretty expensive. It would probably be like 1,000 gold.
Okay, excellent. And so I would turn to Darian, who I know is richer than a Colossiah. Because I obviously am not. I did not earn any of this money. So all of this 30,000, 50,000, these digits getting thrown around, I don't have that. So I would basically just be like, Darian, I need 250 gold. So I purposely wouldn't ask. I don't even know if Sabanos knows how to ask. He would just like state the fact of like, I need money.
Hey, please.
And you would see Voyente just like sort of smile, like, don't look at me. Like, I'm not giving you any money. Because I do look like, oh, hey. And he's just like, nope. You're in way too deep. Yeah, exactly. You're in way too deep. And so, and you just hear, it would just be the stupidest little thing about him muttering. And he would go through this short diatribe about how, what do words even mean? And what is that? And who made that up? And why is that a good word? And why isn't it something else? And then he says, please, may I have 250 gold?
Yes, you may.
And then he goes, and I would take the gold, as fake politely as possible. And I would, Jeremy, I would buy this rapier, which especially if it's made by an enchanter here locally. What are some, and you don't have to tell me this on the fly, but I would love to give it some sort of a dwarven name that's, some sort of thing related to brimstone, or like fiend melter, or, like some sort of like just sensational name, but in dwarven sounds way cooler.
Okay. So yes, you can find this, and it's this strange weapon. This is not only made by dwarven hands. Like, a dwarven rapier would be a really bizarre thing to find anyways.
Sure.
This has some elven qualities to it, though it is made of metal, so obviously it was actually forged by dwarven hands more than likely. The blade is this metal that is bordering like platinum or mithril. It's this white, pale silver, incredibly shiny blade. It seems to kind of hold the light of whatever it's reflecting kind of as you move it about. And the basket hilt that surrounds your hand is actually like a swarm of fiends that are kind of mounting towards the pommel. And at the pommel there is a lone dwarf who is holding them all back against his shield like a rock against the storm of the sea. And so this is a +1 weapon, and against fiends it will count as a +2 weapon. And in addition, you have, we'll call it a D4 +1 charges, and you can effectively have like the lowest level of a paladin's smite.
Gosh, yeah.
If you spend a charge to do so.
I love that. That's fantastic. And I just typed all that in my doc. I realized I wasn't muted. So I hope everybody enjoyed the sounds of my keyboard as I just as I typed up the description of Fiend Melter.
Fiend Melter. I like it. And I can get you a dwarven translation of it.
That would be great.
Probably tomorrow.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah. No, I need it right now. No, I'm kidding.
In dwarven, it translates to Jenny from the block. That's what we do. We give them all of our weapons cool names, but they translate into really ridiculous.
I love that.
Common sayings.
That's fantastic. Yeah, but that's great. And now I have $0 now. I don't even know where my next meal's coming from, but I am so happy about that armor and that sword.
And Darian, you can find a short sword that is kind of a similar material. It'll have the same functionality, but the design of this one, the cross piece that goes across the blade and the tine, is actually hollow. And if you look inside of it, there's actually carvings inside the cross piece, and it is a delve of dwarves that are descending down a chimney into the down under. And it forms kind of like this tube that crosses the blade. The blade, like I said, is this very, very white, light-colored metal. And the handle is probably a little larger, a little stockier than you're used to with a short sword, but the balance in this blade is absolutely impeccable.
After a while, Bastrad's going to get a little impatient and just start to migrate over towards where he thinks that Savanos and Darian may have headed, because he knew that Savanos was jonesing for a shopping trip. So he'll head towards whatever market they have, kind of trusting Katrad to just hang out by the bar, like he said, to meet up with them there. And if he's able to find them and see their fancy new toys, he's going to see about finding if there's like a place to get some sort of like hand-carved quarterstaff that's super cool. But if not, he's just going to look around for a bit, see what other cool stuff we can find, anything that might be useful in hell, anything that might hurt demons.
Okay. So looking around, same price point, Bastrad, you can find a quarterstaff that is this really strange looking material. It's almost chitinous, and it's kind of a purplish red color. And you're told that this is actually one of the spines of a fiend that was recovered and has been imbued with its own set of properties. And it likewise will count as a +1 weapon. However, if you are striking a fiend with this, it has to make we'll call it a Constitution saving throw. Or it will impart, for now we'll call it the stunned condition, but it'll it's a little more dramatic than that, but we'll wait to see that actually happen.
Amazing.
We'll figure out.
Yeah, Bastrad gives it a couple test twirls to feel the weight of it. And he pulls out his old just ironwood staff and swaps that out in his leather case on his back. Or like leather, like kind of sheath, slightly like tapered sheath that it fits into.
Okay. So, a bit more outfitted. You know that you will have a little more time to procure some more equipment that you might need, something that might make you feel a little more comfortable about where it is that you're going to be going next. But for now, at least, what is the conversation whenever the five of you come back together?
Does I'm making an assumption here based on her response, but is it safe to assume that Sonia has agreed to help guide us on our delve?
Yes.
So I think that's what I would tell everybody, that we don't need to worry about who's going to go with us. Sonia is going to make sure we are taken care of.
She kind of looks at all of you. Has Katya, forgive me, has Kotvarad explained to you what to expect? Where we are going?
I've told them some of the stories, and in this new armor, you would see one, Godrod's very comfortable in her Kybrick armor. But also she's here, and in particular, Basterad and Darian, you're seeing a little more of sort of a combination of the old impetuous, kind of cocky Katya, but with this new air of almost, the word doesn't seem right to describe Kutvarad, but responsibility. As she just sort of kind of walks in front of you and almost like parading back and forth, just says, I've told them a little bit of what they should expect. What I didn't tell them was that not everybody thinks that non-humans belong in the down under. It is, as father used to say, he used to say that the Colossiahs created the dwarves from out of the very bedrock of the world, and that we were tempered in the flames of hell. And that's why we were chosen to crawl around on the underbelly of the world and extract the precious metals from within. Non-dwarfs, father always said, are unclean, like impurities in the metal, and that they could never appreciate the harshness of hell. I don't think that. That's I don't share those beliefs. I just want you to know that there are some of the dwarves that are not going to like the idea of all of you coming down with Sonia and I.
Unfortunately, she is right. It will take some convincing, I think. It will have to be sanctioned. Of course, and the rituals must be observed if it's going to succeed. But if you all have gotten Katfarad through what she says you have, then maybe there is a chance. But you should be prepared. It is unlike any place you have likely ever seen before. Fiends, they get inside of you. Inside of your body, inside of your mind. They will change you. When you come back, you will not be alone. They will be with you always. So when you go into this place, this down under, you are allowing yourself to be altered, and you should know this.
I may not have seen any fiends yet, but I know a thing or two about demons that stick with you. I think I can handle it.
Very well.
If everything goes according to plan, the demon won't be the only thing I bring back out of there.
I have heard of the tenacity of bonekin. It is good to see it is true. You will need it.
Yes, and even though these things are called fiends, they have blood within them, and they have organic structure, and they have a way to end their life. We will find those things, we will break those things down, and leaving the mysticism behind, we will do what is necessary to take the life from the creatures. I feel that the only thing that we can bring to shadow is light, and that makes it flee. Not because of faith, but because of science.
I see. Good. Tenacity and bravado. Very well then. Give me a few days. I will try to make the necessary arrangements. And then all of us will go to hell. And she raises the drink and toasts. And that, I think, is where we will end tonight's session.
Very cool. One thing I'd like to do, because I'm afraid I'll forget this before the next session. As everybody has their new weapons and armor, one thing that I would like to do is go to each of them with some things that I pulled out of the stuff that Sonia brought. For Bastarad, I would take a length of leather, that was perhaps meant to be a strap. It's worked, got some very fine dwarvish runes. All of these are pieces of leather that were created by my father. And for Haroon, I very deftly wrap it around the center of his new quarterstaff, like a hand grip. For Sabanos, I find one that looks more like a leather bracelet, that I make sure that I put it on your sword hand. For Haroon, I'm imagining, regardless of, we'll figure that out when we figure out whatever Haroon does. And then for Darian, it's very finely crafted, but there's almost a tongue-in-cheek aspect to it as you see Katvarad creating all of these things for everybody, or putting them with their new weapons. And when I asked to see your weapon, I'm doing something with it, and when I hand it back to you, the tied around the pommel of the sword is an elaborate weaving of leather, very finely detailed leather thongs. Essentially, I've given you a leather tassel to go on the pommel of your sword. It's very finely worked, but there's also that twinkle of mischievousness when she gives it to you.
Yeah, I imagine there's that moment where like Darian will sort of like swing it around and like it'll like the leather will like come up and like hit the side of his arm when he swings it. And it's like it's not the most convenient, but there's a charm to it.
Excellent. Okay. So yeah, we'll detail things out as we need to. Any other names that we need to give things, make sure that the mechanics are all finalized and things like that for what you guys have. I'll catch up with Alan and make sure that Haroon is equally outfitted. So yeah, I think next time. Please go ahead and level your characters between this session and next. You guys will level up, and yes, and then next session we will dive a little bit deeper into Dwarven culture, make more finalized preparations, and then we're gonna go into hell. Excellent. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in this evening, whether you're watching live with us tonight or whether you're watching at some point in the future. Thank you very, very much for stopping by. Hit the like button if you like what you saw. Subscribe to the channel. We are so close to hitting 400. It's a massive milestone that I'm hoping to hit by the end of the year. I think we are 6 away. So I'm hoping that I can round that milestone. Thank you so much to these 5 fantastic players, 4 of them who are playing with us this evening. Alan, you were missed. I'm sorry that you could not be here, but I'm looking forward to seeing you next session. So I'm going to pass things back over to the 4 players that brought such a fantastic performance once again to these characters and this story to plug what they'd like, say goodbye, tuck you in, read you a lullaby, and then we're going to call it a night. So we're going to start in reverse order with Jeff.
Yes, I'm Jeff. Again, 1/3 of Tabletop Terrors. If you want to see some tabletop videos and such, go ahead and give that a check. But yeah, another absolutely fantastic session. Some insane drama, some insane monsters, and then some just super cool cultural stuff. We have yet another like 2-year bombshell in the waiting that finally got to come to light, which is the fact that there's a game that I'm playing and that I can say those words in is mind-boggling. Yeah, just this game is the game that just keeps on giving. Every session just builds on the ones before, and the characters just keep getting deeper and richer and cooler. And this game is amazing. It continues to be every single time.
I agree, man. Again, these people, we were talking about it in the chat about how these characters are so troubled that all of them have these deeply seated issues that kind of change and color everything that they do. But it's awesome, truth be told. Like, just to watch that happen, and for you guys to maintain that for your characters through all of the crazy things that you've been through, and how it's maintained what your approach to handling those situations is. It's amazing to watch. You guys are incredible. So thank you for that. Speaking of incredible, next up, Tim.
Hey, thank you. This game is just amazing, and thank you all. I'll echo what Jeff said and just say, if you're looking to learn about tabletop RPGs, whether that's something like for brand new absolute beginners or even some seasoned GMs who want to hear some theory on things like improv and NPC prep and things like that, check out Tabletop Terrors. You might enjoy it. And we have a lot of videos that have come out this year, more than ever, really. And so if you're interested in coming and checking it out, you will probably like it if you like the kind of stuff on this channel, because Jeremy is a GM that we love playing under, and we share a lot of the same philosophies. So yeah, give it a try.
I will absolutely echo that sentiment. And if you are looking for a community to be a part of, where games like this get put together on the regular, and it is filled with people who have these kinds of thoughts and philosophies as far as gaming goes, then you could not find a better place than the official Absolute Tabletop official group, I think is the real name of it, on Facebook. It is a community of phenomenal people that has been built up around the company that Tim mentioned. They put out awesome stuff, as it so happens to be icing on the cake. So, yeah, not only do you get to hear all the amazing announcements and things that they come up with for the products that they put out, but also you can, like I said, get into some fantastic games, meet some incredible people. Go check it out. All right, incredible people. Next up, Austin.
The master of segues, Jeremy Lilly, everybody. Give him a hand. Give him a hand. So, thank you so much as always. It's always a blast playing with this group. I always love what you're laying down, Jeremy. Holy cow, what a night to not be here. Sorry, Alan. Yeah, you just missed the Kraken, the Edge of the World, and the 2-year in the waiting bombshell from Kaparad. So, sorry, that's unfortunate. Also, every time one of those insane secrets come out, all I can think is like, oh my god, what were Kalp and Ingvarad's secrets? Like, we got maybe a taste of Kalp's with the crime family he was involved with. But, like, what was Ingvarad's secret? Oh my god, it's got to be horrible. Like, it's something awful. And I hope we can find out someday if we can drag her out of hell and get a cameo from Lloyd. But that was a blast. I'm super excited to dive into hell with you, gentlemen.
Yes, I cannot wait. It's going to be so much fun. It's going to be awful at the same time, I promise. Yeah, Austin, it's fantastic, man, to have you here. Thank you so much for playing in this game and for every single time you sit down with Boss Strut. Every single one of these characters, they just feel like real people to me. They feel like they're fully developed. I can understand how they're going to react in most situations because I feel like I know them so well, which is incredible. That's a really cool place to be in with an RPG. All right. Last but certainly not least, my brother from another mother, Jake.
Wow. Yeah, this time I got to be the one to release a secret that I've been sitting on since character creation. And unfortunately, none of the other party members were around to hear it. But it was, I always wondered how that piece of information would come out. I think perhaps if Ingvarad had been around a little longer, maybe it would have come out naturally in inter-party reactions or interactions. But I like the way that this happened because Ingvarad filled a place that Sonia once occupied as an important figure in then Katya's life. So it was really cool to kind of come back as somebody a little more mature, but also to have these underlying issues and just be able to reveal that and to get to watch Austin, Tim, and Jeff's faces as that information was dropping, glancing down at the Zoom window while I was role playing in those situations. And it's just absolutely an honor for the better part of 2 years to be playing this game. I never imagined I would retain so much connection to the characters in a campaign that isn't as frequent as a weekly campaign. But these characters have so much depth to them and have become so integral to one another that it's just easy to remember from moment to moment. Even though it's weeks in between when we play. It's just incredible. Has been one of the most cathartic and most intense emotionally role-playing games that I've ever played. And it's just been an incredible ride with everybody we've gone along with. So thank you for that, and just continuing to be an incredible storyteller and world builder, but also letting us have some big part in that. Always letting us create alongside you. This has just been incredible. And I just want to say before we go, tune in for the finale on Thursday, tomorrow night, season 4 finale of Dawnbringers, Heart of the Nightfang Spire. And then you can catch Alan running his players through Curse of Strahd on Friday nights on twitch.tv/mini terrain domain. I think Jeremy said the links are down below.
It should be. I'm now second guessing whether I have your YouTube channel or your Twitch channel listed, but I'll rectify it later. You guys are all fantastic, and I cannot wait to bring this story to a close. Not because I want this campaign to necessarily end, but because I think it's going to be a really great end cap to what we've gone through already, and I'm looking forward to it. So, thank you, everyone. I cannot wait until next month, but until then, may your dice roll high and your snacks always be within reach.